Hi and welcome everyone. I'm gonna give a few seconds for in standard Zoom form for our audience to fill in. It's nice to see so many of you joining us on this Wednesday for Alta Live. As I welcome you, as we kind of gather here together, sound like we're at church, but as we gather here together in our Zoom webinar, I'm going to get some housekeeping out of the way. Thank you for joining us at Alta Live. This is the digital interview series we do here at Alta Journal. I'm Beth Spotswood. I'm Alta's digital editor. Today, I am very excited to welcome cartoonist Kate Isenberg. Kate's cartoons have appeared in The New Yorker, The New Republic, and Alta Journal, ooh la la, among many other places. She joins us today to detail her process from the blank page to hilarious published gag cartoon, and she will be answering your questions. There is a Q&A button down at the bottom. I will go through those and we'll get to as many as we can today. Before we get started, I do want to say, if you're unfamiliar with Alta Journal, we are an award-winning quarterly magazine and website focused on California and the West. We also feature a monthly California book club. If you like what we do here today, I hope that you will check out our many offerings, including cartoons, on the back of every issue and online. In fact, we have a Kate Isenberg right here. So today's recording today will be recorded, and we'll email this to you at the end of the session, as well as links to anything we talk about, where you can find Kate's work, or you can find any of the wonderful cartoonists she's going to tell us about. I do like to kick things off by asking everyone to tell us where they're zooming in from in the chat session. It's kind of fun to get a geographic look at our group. So again, use that Q&A button. Let us know where you're zooming in from in the chat. I'm here in Novato, California today. And with that, I'm going to welcome the wonderful and talented Kate Isenberg.
Thank you so much for having me, Beth.
I'm really excited that you're joining us. We've got Massachusetts,
right on,
Poland, Cupertino, San Francisco, Spain, New York City, Maryland, Utah, Colorado. I love this. This is great. So Kate, can you just kind of, before we go into a slideshow and we get to see your work and your process, can you tell us a little bit about where you're from, what your art education background is?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm a California girl. So I feel a special kinship with Alta for that reason. I grew up here in the Bay Area where I am now. I'm in my childhood home at the moment. And I went to school back east. I studied English, which was kind of an interesting preparation for a cartoonist. And I actually think it was kind of perfect because although, I mean, I was always drawing like in the margins of my notebooks in class and stuff, but I think that studying literature was the perfect way to just like jump in and swim around in our culture's stories. Which I routinely draw on, like the Charlotte's Web cartoon that's on the back of Alta this time. I mean, okay, I did not read Charlotte's Web as an English major in college, but the whole literary world is very ripe for humor. So I draw on it regularly.
It's fabulous. All right, so you so fabulously put together a slideshow for us, and I'm going to have you take us through that together. Guys, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of pass through this slideshow together, and then Kate and I are going to chat for a little bit, and we're going to get to your questions. So again, the Q&A button is there, and kind of look at that while I share my screen, because this is not going to make this beautiful. All right, here we go. Kate, can you see where we are?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Again, I have not put together this slideshow. Normally it's much uglier and I'm the one that does it, but we have the Kate Isenberg. So she did her own slideshow and I'm so excited. All right. So when we chatted, I had warned you that my kid might run in here, and you said, you have a dog.
Yes.
Right. Join you. Is walking your dog, as you kind of mentioned, one of the ways that you find your inspiration, or at least start to get those ideas flowing?
Definitely. I mean, when I first got her, her name is Cleo. And when I first got her, I was often really anxious when I was walking her, because I was like, I'm away from my desk I need to be working right now, which caused a lot of tension between us. But over time, I realized that actually those walks were really key to getting me out away from my desk and out in the world and seeing people, interacting with people, and seeing all the weird things that people do, which are necessary to making cartoons.
Yeah, weird things that people do are, I mean,
Really
my
weird.
favorite thing about people. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is, I kind of love this slide because this is something that you came across presumably on one of your walks with Cleo.
Yes.
We have a garden gnome and a very old garden flamingo, it would appear.
Yes. This
Okay,
was
go ahead, sorry.
this was in a garden near my apartment where I used to live in Los Angeles. This guy had an amazing sculpture garden of really random stuff that he had collected. He had been a set designer for a heavy metal band of some kind. I don't remember which. He came out one day and explained all of it to me. But anyway, these were two of the things in his garden. And I just was like, that's wonderful and bizarre. And I love it. And I saw a relationship between the two characters that I found interesting. And so I took a picture of it, not knowing what it was going to yield, but knowing that there was something in there that I wanted to play with. And it eventually became this cartoon.
And what patio and garden outlet has joined together, let no yard sale put asunder. This
Yeah.
is great. And so this ended up in Alta. Did you submit this to, be honest, numerous, like what's the process when you have a finished cartoon like this? Do you submit it to kind of like cast a really wide net and the first person who bites gets dibs on that cartoon? How's it work?
Well, I mean, from a licensing point of view, the first publication that bites does get dibs on the cartoon because that's kind of how it works. But depending on where we are in the year, I might choose to submit cartoons to Alta, which is quarterly, or I might, the New Yorker is weekly. So that's kind of the engine that keeps me producing on a regular basis. So I will submit there and submit collections of my favorites to publications that have a less frequent schedule. So I'll kind of pick from that well to submit to.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to see, this is another Cleo walk inspo that ended up in Alta, I guess.
Yeah.
And you really kind of take us through the process here of, this is one of those free libraries that have popped up in so many neighborhoods that are adorable. And this is the end results. And then in the middle, we have a blank page. And so I love kind of you've got your sketchbook and your Pete's, and that's it. Are you thinking, okay, I'm going to do something with free libraries?
It really depends on what it is. I mean, every cartoon has a different path to being finished. With little free libraries, with that one, I saw that a little free library on my walk, and I just was like, I just love that. There's something about that speaks to me, like the garden gnome and the flamingo. And I knew I wanted to do something with it. So I would sit down with my sketchbook and play with it. Like, okay, what else could go with that? What other piece of culture might I be able to bring in?
We kind of get there, don't we? I'm moving like us rapidly along, but didn't we? All right.
I think it's in there somewhere.
Okay. But so you kind of, you really do start with a blank page.
Yeah, I start with a blank page and this pen.
And this fancy pants pen. Do you have to get it in? So this is the wonderful Jessica, who is an associate editor at Alta, is taking notes here. Okay, so this pen that you heard about from cartoonist Mimi Pond, it looks like, is this in Japanese or?
Yeah, it's a Japanese fountain pen. It's a Japanese fountain pen. And you don't have to have you absolutely do not need a fancy pen. I just like this pen because it dispenses the right amount of ink for sketching. And I love it. But you can, like, this is a micron pen. I often use this kind of thing for sketching and drawing.
I know that pen.
Micron pen 01. I use that a lot too for sketching, and it's about a third as much.
Oh, well, then there you go. So Mimi Pond is a cartoonist who kind of suggested that pen, but you have some shout outs here to Adrienne Tomine, Mimi Pond, William Steig, and Linda Berry.
Yes.
I love that. It seems like cartoonists are a loving bunch, not as competitive as another actors or musicians, or especially considering that there's so few opportunities. There's so, presumably to be a professional cartoonist. Am I wrong in my assumption that all cartoonists are best friends with each other and really nice?
Totally. They are. No, I mean, you're not wrong. We are all totally best friends. Yes. And on Sunday nights, we dance in the woods together. No, just kidding. But no, it is a really friendly group. And I think that there's a real synergy among people's work. We're all sort of looking at the culture together, and we all, of course, have a different perspective on it, but there is a real synergy, and I have found cartoonists to be very friendly human beings.
Funny people now. Okay, so this is kind of an example of some of you sit down to the blank page and you're just start drawing the gallbladder fairy. And there's no real joke here other than
not yet.
Right, a guy with no hands playing Twister, a magician, and the bunny's his therapist.
Yeah.
And these are you just have keep collective notebooks of these. How often do you go back? When your mind is empty, do you just go through your old notebooks and be like, oh yes, the gallbladder fairy that I thought of 5 years ago?
Yeah, sometimes I do think that time and space are very helpful. I just went through a few the other day and was like, wait, this was a good idea. Why didn't I do this? And of course, there are many that are not going to make that journey to being a finished cartoon. But I do think that just keeping that creativity flowing in sketches that may or may not become something is really, really important for me as a cartoonist.
Like the alien in a fishnet stocking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yes. It's important. That has a place. Its place is probably not going to be an Alta or the New Yorker. But I think that giving it an outlet is like, you never know what's going to come out. Like I could change one thing about that and it suddenly would be a cartoon.
What would you change about it?
Oh, I was afraid you would ask me that. I don't know. I might put it on a pogo stick, or I might put it on one of those bird scooters when that was a thing culturally, when everyone was mad about the bird scooters in cities. Maybe I would put a many-eyed alien on a bird scooter, and there would be some kind of a joke there.
Feel free to add how you would change the alien, the fishnet stocking leg, and a high heel in that chat.
I'd like to hear from everybody in the chat about that.
Okay, it's the alien and the high heel that we want your thoughts on, or your cartoon gag ideas about.
Yes.
Okay, so this is something that you put on Instagram. It's two giraffes wearing sweatpants. After all this is over, I don't think I'll ever wear skinny jeans again.
Yeah, that was the sketch.
This is the sketch. And this is the finished. Do you think, is Instagram kind of the social media platform of choice for cartooning?
I think so. Yeah.
For aspiring cartoonists, should they be posting their stuff on Instagram? I feel like comedians are on Twitter.
Okay.
In an early interview, I was told, put your funny, 140 characters on Twitter. So Instagram is kind of where is it your testing ground, or more your, I don't know, I hate to say like the reject zone for stuff that doesn't get purchased?
I mean, for me, it's a work in progress. I would say it's something that I like to experiment with. I like to post things that might be just a little bit too weird or not a fully formed joke on Instagram, but still express something about my style of humor. I like to share other artists' work sometimes to my stories on Instagram. So it's a real community builder, I think, at its best. You know, I
What is
definitely.
it at its worst?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, just look at the news. I mean, I wouldn't say to any aspiring cartoonist that you have to be on Instagram. I think do you. But I think that it provides a lot of opportunities to see what other people are doing, to get inspired. You know, I'm often inspired by seeing what other people do. It might just kind of shake me out of whatever groove I'm in, sketching wise, and go in a totally different direction.
I just want to say for the record that I love the direction you took here, that there is a tail hole in the giraffe sweatpants.
Yes.
Giraffe sweatpants come with tail holes.
Yes.
That was a choice.
Yes, and little waistbands.
Well, of course, they would fall down. Okay, I like that you, first of all, the number of Grim Reapers in cartooning, having just gone through over 1,000 Alta submissions for the next issue.
It's a thing.
Grim Reaper is a thing.
It's because death and cartooning are linked. Inextricable. Mortality and cartooning.
So this is the real seed of an idea of like, okay, there's a Grim Reaper wearing sneakers, and I'm gonna start going places with it. And then it lands. We've ended up at the airport, presumably. Yes. Sir, you'll need to remove your shoes. I mean, this is a little dark that the Grim Reaper is getting on an airplane.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
going. As a nervous flyer. I don't know which is more frightening though, that the Grim Reaper is getting on an airplane or a security guard as a ponytail.
Well, I mean, that's just reportage. I mean, that's what I've seen, but
it rings so true.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been through, or many of us have been through security at an airport, and there's the ritual that we do in order to convince ourselves that now it's safe, right? And you know, cartooning is about poking holes in all of that, in all of those rituals that we do as a culture to kind of hold it together. And so that's where this came from.
I like that you know, when you talk about the community, that you welcome collaboration. So you're saying here, you know, you start off the sketch with the caption, "I will now play another depressing song about my personal life. And in sharing this with Alexis Hart, who is a songwriter,"
yes,
the caption is changed to, "Here's another depressing song about me," which got is better.
Yeah, it's, you know, I'm so fortunate to have such a wonderful group of co-collaborators, fellow artists in my life. Like this one, for example, my dear friend Rachel Garland, also a songwriter, which I don't think is an accident. I think it's very fitting that songwriters are good at writing captions, but this was the sketch for a cartoon that the New Yorker eventually bought. This was the very first drawing, raw in my sketchbook. As you can see, it's very raw, but I instantly felt like, okay, there's something here I want to play with. It's a dog book club and they're reading a memoir by a cat. My original caption was, "I just found the main character kind of unlikable," the cat character. And so Rachel read that and just like, you know, I don't know what this hand gesture means, but it means like made it concise and perfect. Sometimes another set of eyes, especially a creative set of eyes, can really bring it home and make it right. And that was the case with this one.
And your ego, you're cool with that? You don't
Absolutely.
have any...
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think as artists, we all are contributing to each other's work all the time. And it's a joy to have fellow creators in my life that I can share ideas and energy with. Absolutely.
Does Rachel get her own personal copy of this?
Yes.
New York.
Rachel, you get your own personal copy.
Good. Yeah. This is your workspace. I always think it's so fun to see your workspace. It makes it so real.
Yeah, that's the computer half of the room. I'm a sort of half and half girl in that I work somewhat on the computer and part of my process is on paper. In my sketchbook, at my desk. So this is the computer part. That huge monitor that's on a tilt is a drawing tablet. It's called a Cintiq tablet, and it's the coolest thing ever. You draw right on the screen and it goes right into the software.
Very cool. So we could kind of see, this is what we were looking for earlier. We're back to kind of the little conspiracy theories. And you had people in it at first, as the idea kind of went on its journey.
Yes.
You have a mom and a baby, and then you landed on, oh, and this is the background. Is that what you do? Is it like layers? Like you do the back?
Yeah, definitely. Like I might work on the sketch originally to sort of get the concept right. And then when I'm happy with that, I will really drill down to the composition, the background. I studied animation at UCLA animation workshop. And one of the best classes I took there was all about background design and how useful it is to sort of make the reader, the audience, whatever, look where you want them to look in the drawing, in the film, whatever. And so this was like part of my attempt to use the background, not in a distracting way, but like the background's important in this cartoon. It's supposed to be a sort of manicured suburban, perfect setting. So the background is meant to draw our eye to eventually, which is on the next slide, I think, the library. Yeah, so that like that little cut off branch coming off of the tree is pointing right at the library.
Oh, wow. We didn't even notice that we noticed that. And then you ended with removing, well, you changed the background.
A little bit, but it's basically the same. I messed around a little bit with the color, the saturation, the lights and darks, so that the highest contrast was on the library. So that's the thing we note. We, as human beings, we tend to notice things that are black and white very fast, much more than subtle gray.
Well, and it's also interesting that you removed the people so that the reader can put themselves in, and having no humans around with everything so suburban, it gives the neighborhood a menacing feel. And I think it's interesting because I get all of that from looking at it, but it's all subconscious, and it's, you clearly are very conscious about all of it. Okay, so once you're done, you go back and hand draw it.
Once I've got a sketch and the composition is all set, I will print that out. And then to create the final ink line, I will trace over the sketch using a light board on a nice art paper. And the reason for that is that there's no digital ink brush in Photoshop or any other program that I've found that I like as much as a pen on paper. It's just no substitute that I've found.
And you recommend Mastering Comics by Jessica Abel and Matt Madden.
Yes, this is a very good book.
I love a book recommendation. And A Brush with Greatness, which is such a great name. But so is this what you use on Adobe in the computer?
Yeah. Kyle Webster was originally a kind of, he's an artist himself, and he made these digital brushes, sets of them, like the watercolor digital set, the oil painting set, the sketching set, and you could buy them for a ridiculously low amount of money and just use them in your art. Since then, Adobe kind of realized how awesome he was and hired him to be their in-house brush designer. So now I believe his brushes are only available through Adobe, I think, but that's what I use.
All right, last slide. I love this. This is a stack of your cartoons. And these, about 5% of these will actually make it to print.
Yeah.
So this is 2 years of work.
Yes. Those are 2 years of final art, ink on paper cartoons.
So it's just interesting how we've seen, like, you go from the sketches of the alien head on the the fishnet stocking kind of to this long process of doing it on the computer, getting it all right, deciding, reworking the captions with friends and family and whomever, to finally deciding which ones and which captions get to kind of land here. And then only 5% of those,
Yeah.
which is why you recommend Angela Duckworth's Grit, The Power and Passion of Perseverance.
Yeah. I gave up reading it part of the way through, but yes, I recommend it.
I get it.
I got the point, I got the point, and I was like, I get it. I got to get back to work now.
That's great. I wanted to talk a little bit about, we were speaking earlier about like how there needs your humor is certainly kind, it's never mean, but you like an edge. The past few years, I think, as particularly in America, but around the world, we've all been on edge. Has that the political issues, the social justice issues, the public health issues, have any of those changed the way that you draw or write your humor?
I think that they do, certainly from a content standpoint. It would be hard to go through the last several years without touching on the pandemic and social justice and the political divisions that we have in our country. I do think I draw a lot more than I actually submit to publications. And when I submit, I have to think about whether that publication is going to be interested in this cartoon. But that means nothing about whether I would do that work. I absolutely would do that work, whether or not it had an obvious place to send it to. But I do think that edge is a key. And I've actually, in my conversations with more experienced cartoonists, I've been encouraged to lean on that. When I first started out and showed some of my work to Julia Suits, who is a veteran New Yorker cartoonist, she looked at them, it was so funny. She looked at them and said, well, it looks like you had a really good childhood, which was true, but I was just like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that
like
mean?
A compliment, but what she meant was, I think that the cartoons didn't have enough edge in them. And as she put it, I needed to go down the basement steps and really muck around in a more raw kind of emotion. And that was an excellent piece of feedback, which I use regularly.
Speaking of Matt Madden, I'm diving into audience questions
Yeah.
now. Are you familiar with 99 Ways to Tell a Story Exercises in Style?
No, but sounds like I should be.
Well, can you comment a bit more about the relationship between literature and cartoons? Is there a relationship?
Oh yeah, definitely.
How so?
Well, I think for me, I don't know. I don't know that I could sum up what it is in a vacuum, but for me, there's a really wonderful synergy between them in that literature as we think of it is very serious, and it's a fine art, whereas cartooning is a commercial art. It's more raw, it's more immediate, and it's more perhaps of the moment and edgy. But to me, all of that seriousness in literature is absolutely just delicious material for cartoons. That said, really, they come from the same place, which is to understand our world, to reflect on the world, and to add something that makes life more bearable, that allows us to connect with each other through humor or through insight.
Can you reveal your inspiration for the gallbladder fairy that was in your notebook? What prompted a gallbladder fairy?
Well, okay, so this is sometimes where a cartoon might come from. Like, we know about the tooth fairy, right? That's very established. What would happen? Oftentimes, a cartoon can come from taking something well known, like the tooth fairy, or Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, or whatever it is. I don't know, grocery checkout lines, and then changing it slightly, mashing it up with something else in our culture that you would not expect. So the gallbladder fairy was like, I'm thinking about about the tooth fairy, and then thinking, well, what other kind of fairy could there be that would come in the night and, you know, swap something. That's where it came from.
A lot of people are asking, will this be viewable later? Yes, this is being recorded. I will ask Kate if we can get the slideshow, if she will be share. How do you maintain such positivity in a really competitive field? You strike everyone as a really positive person. Do you ever get down? Does it ever just break your heart and the perseverance book goes out the window and you're like, screw this, I'm gonna go do something else?
It's definitely tough. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have days when I'm like, oh, am I getting anywhere? It takes a lot of time. And I think part of that is that I'm newer to this field, and I'm still finding what style is the best one for me to work in. I see my style potentially evolving somewhat. So it takes a lot of time. Any kind of artistic growth does. It definitely is. It's tough on those days when you know, none of the cartoons that I worked hard on sells. It hurts. There's no getting around that. I have found that what helps with that is starting on the next batch of, I mean, that's like the only thing that is reliably helpful, is starting on the next batch and just kind of putting those aside. Sometimes reworking a cartoon later and being like, okay, that was a good idea, but it needs to be changed somewhat, relying on my community, and just feeling really grateful that I can even do this at all. You know, I mean, it's a wonderful gift to be able to just draw something ridiculous with a pen on paper. And that's what it has to come back to at the end of the day.
You talked a little bit about your style evolving, and presumably everyone's style evolves. I mean, Picasso's style evolves. Is there a marketability? Is that, I don't even, you know what I mean, about having a really recognizable style? That's Kate Isenberg. I can tell right away that that's her cartoon. And are you worried if you change too much or evolve too much that you're not gonna, you've worked so hard, you've been in the New Yorker and Alta.
Absolutely.
You know, are you trying to stop some evolution, I guess, in
That's a
terms of your
great
art?
question. Great question. Yeah, I think that is a potential issue. I think that cartoonists do become known for their styles, and that is a real strong selling point for them. And I think ultimately that's what every cartoonist would want, is to be known for their style, not only their style visually, but their style of thinking. For my part, I think that I think that there is a consistency that's not going to change in terms of how I see things. And I still see like drawings from when I was 5 that look like my art still, even though the drawing is a bit more refined than when I was 5. So I think it still will be recognizable. I think what I'm talking about when I say evolving is a little bit more about the process. I think that there's a lot to be said for all the thinking that goes into the cartoons right now for me. And I also think that there's something to be said for the ones that are just straight out of just like fast sketches that are pure, you know, pure id on the paper. Some of the ones that I have sold have actually been more like that have been fast. And I'd like to cultivate that a little bit more, I think.
As we're going a little bit over time, I hope that's okay. I'll just do 2 more questions. When the New Yorker picks one of your cartoons, let's put Alta aside. We get the New Yorker is the end all be all, presumably, of when having a gag cartoon selected in the New Yorker is a big deal. Do you see a huge bump in interest in Instagram followers? How does it feel? You get the yes letter from the New Yorker. Then what happens?
Yeah, the what? I'm sorry.
The yes letter.
Oh, the yes letter. It's exciting. There's no doubt about that. It feels good. No, it feels almost as good as being selected by Alta, frankly.
Sure.
Um,
Thank you.
so, it's a good day when that happens. And there is a feeling of, okay, like I'm on the right track. I'm connecting with, I'm not only connecting with my own art, which I always want to do, but I'm communicating something. I think that's where the real joy is for me, from that point of view. Like, not so much, of course, it's helpful from a professional standpoint to get new people interested in my work. But basically what I want at the end of the day is I want to be able to communicate with more people and be part of the conversation. And so that is what excites me the most, when the New Yorker puts my stuff on their website, or Alta puts my cartoon on the back of its cover. It gives me the opportunity to communicate.
I would just like to give a shout out to Tim McGee for the high heel alien landing on top of a planet of flip-flops.
Yes.
I love
Awesome.
it.
Now draw that.
Tim, draw it and submit to Alta, info at
Yes.
altaonline.com, please.
Yes, and send it to me.
My last question for you is, can you tell us a little bit about your t-shirt?
Sure. Yes. I'm wearing a t-shirt featuring Stu Ball, which is a cartoon character that I've drawn for a long time, decades, basically. He's a half horse, half unicorn, and he wants to be a professional poet. And he's kind of my artistic muse. I have a long running comic strip featuring Stu Ball that I do and sometimes put online. I'm working on a book of Stu Ball right now. And this image in particular, which is a little bit weird, Stu Ball is like opening up his chest and releasing blue birds into the air. And this drawing, I call it potential. That was like the word that came to mind when I drew it. It's about releasing one's potential into the world, creatively or otherwise. And that's what we're all here for.
Where can we find more about Stu Ball?
StuBall.com.
Obviously.
Yeah. Go get it.
Okay. Well, with that, let's just drop the mic on stuball.com. Before everyone goes, I would just like to thank them for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will have all of this conversation up on altaonline.com later today, as well as I'm going to email you a link to it. Next week, I'm going to welcome right here on what's a week from today, October 13th, Wednesday at 12:30, another wonderful artist, Anita Kuntz. Her new book, Original Sisters, is a collection of portraits of pioneering and extraordinary women drawn and painted in Anita's extraordinary and signature style. You've seen her work on the cover of the New Yorker, and we feature her new book in our new issue. So join us for that. A huge thank you to the wonderful and my new friends. I feel like spent so much time on Zoom together. Kate Isenberg, this was really, really fun. I'm so grateful that you've shared so much of your process with us and kind of been so generous with your time and your wisdom. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a huge honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Get back.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.